So I've got another Lego military vehicle build here to showcase, and as usual, as things are going on my channel, it starts with a strange story. So when it comes to making tracked vehicles, military vehicles, you have a couple options when it comes to Lego. These are the about 3 brick wide treads, and then they have these one single brick wide treads, and they're both fantastic, but sometimes they're hard to come by. And they're very, very useful, but these are kind of your only option. I know there are some other places that make custom pieces that are like the 2 brick wide treads, but I try to be a little bit imaginative and see what I could do even if I didn't have these pieces. So I actually revisited these. Some people might have some of these. They might know what these are. These are indeed Lego. They are Caterpillar treads that are rubber, and they are a single length, so you can't like these are made out of a bunch of individual pieces, so you can sort of pop them all apart and make them any length you want. But these are a single length, and in my opinion, they're actually very obnoxious to use, and I think most other Lego builders of the same genre have deemed them useless as well, because you can't adjust them. They're extremely small if you're trying to make angled wheels at all, and they kind of only sit flat with one kind of wheel as opposed to different gear sizes you can use for these. But as a personal challenge, I revisited these and attempted to make a build that I'm now very proud of using these treads. And I think I used them to great effect. And I, as a point of inspiration, I would like to showcase that build and show what can be done, even with a piece like this, which is not even your best selection. I would much prefer to use these on armored vehicles, but here we are with this piece, and I think it made something that is really fun to look at. So just as a point of reference, I think I'm going to do this sort of build showcase the same way I did the Plover tank video, in which I showed it off in one video and then made some tutorials that followed after that showed how I built it with sort of less boring commentary. So commentary now and then less of it on the actual builds in case people kind of want to see how I put it together. But as far as this video goes, it's just going to be the showcase. So here we are. This is my my build. I'm extremely proud of this. I think that it's a really cool thing and a really nice use of these Caterpillar tracks. Which I'll get into, but I'll start with a quick little spin around here to kind of just showcase what it's all about. Just like all my other military vehicle builds, I worked really hard to put a lot of intentional detail in here, and I just kind of wanted to showcase that and show it off a little bit. So this is my AEM1 Armor Engagement Model 1 tank destroyer. It's original design. It's not. It's based off some historical things, but it's not a real vehicle. Its nickname is the Devil Cigar because it's got this big old long gun that's like probably going to be smoking out at the end. And I thought that would be kind of fun to call it that. I added a bunch of little funny features to kind of make it look more and more like sort of a field modified tank destroyer. And tank destroyers, as most of you probably know, were kind of already modified anyway. They were like old tank bodies or old universal carrier bodies with a big old like field gun on it. So I thought it would meet the criteria of these treads really nicely. I think I used them to a pretty great effect. These are actually Lego car wheels without the tires on them, which is pretty fun. And then these are actually the slim Jeep wheels. I don't know if you can see that on the back there instead of the wide ones, which is really fun. I think it doesn't look too bulky or too bad. And as far as the profile of the actual vehicle, it's actually nice and wide, which is cool because you can fit a whole bunch of people kind of in the back there. I didn't plan to do this, but I realized as I was building it with these little loose wheels down here, and the Caterpillar treads, it makes like a clinking noise as it rolls. So that was not something I had in mind, but it was kind of a fun thing that I figured out just as building this. So I might even try to do more builds like this if I have more of these treads. But it kind of adds to the immersion that it sort of rolls around like that. It's sort of just a geeky thing that I was having fun with. But yeah, so I'll get into sort of the details that I just put on this. It's really, really fun. I added a lot of different features, a lot of accessories. I love putting stuff on the outsides. That's kind of my big deal. And like I said, this is not a specific vehicle, but I was inspired by a bunch of different vehicles. So it kind of has those, all those details kind of integrated into it. It's not nearly as advanced as some of my other tanks, but it still has some fun angles and some, sort of a fun way that it came together. So I'm going to pull off all the accessories and we'll get a chance to look at just the base vehicle as it was before I added a whole bunch of extra things to it. So here's the Devil Cigar without any of the features on the outside or the inside. I took the shells out from inside as well. And it looks pretty good. I'm happy with using some, like the textures I've used, sort of like these grates on the back and things like that, and even leaving some studs on there because I think that if you put just a whole lot of gray on one thing, it looks pretty boring. I know that's something that as a tank builder, it's hard to avoid but I tried my best to kind of make it have some variety in there as well. So I used sort of like black for the iron fittings. I made this toe piece right here, and then I made this light on the front, and I tried to make it a little more interesting. This right here is a machine gun stand, like a machine gun pin. I was going to put this on it. This is my prototype machine gun. I don't know if you can see that I was going to use for this. But when I actually added it to this thing, I thought it was a little much. Historically, tank destroyers had occasionally had machine guns for the crews to use in case they got sort of in a stuck place. But I thought this was a little much, so it's a little bit big. I might trim this gun down and put a different one on it, but for right now, I think I'm just going to leave it as a just sort of a machine gun mount, which I thought still added a nice little bit of detail, even if it wasn't there wasn't anything on there. So I got this big old gun on the front. It's kind of the main armament naturally, and I made it move up and down, so it moves up and down just a little bit. It didn't need a whole lot to really move around, and luckily it's not turreted, so it doesn't have to spin around, which is nice. And then I made this stand be able to be adjusted to sort of position that, so it's cool because you can kind of do a couple different poses for that. I'm not sure how these stands like historically worked, but I thought it would be kind of fun to still include one. So yeah, it doesn't have a whole lot of features in comparison to maybe some other tanks I build, like my Plover or my Saint-Chamond, but the door opens in the back, which is fun. I don't know if you can see in here, there are droid arms that you can move back and forth, sort of like how you drive like a tractor or something like that, which is pretty fun. I figured that this thing would kind of be heavily modified, so I kind of made it look like it was a little bit strange and a little bit weird, and I'm a fan of tank destroyers just as much as I am a fan of tanks, so I thought sort of the overall feel of the tank destroyer was really captured here. As far as the actual body goes, I actually really considered doing camouflage. So I've never done a traditional camouflage pattern. I've kind of avoided it because it's a little intimidating to do. It's kind of a different layer of complexity to already building something like this, like an armored vehicle that has angles and stuff. So I kind of avoided it. I did do an experiment for some camouflage, but I wasn't a fan. So I pulled it apart. I was going to feature it like with camouflage, and then I bailed and I decided to do it in gray. I did revisit doing these though. So this is just like a leaf piece, and I made something that fits right here to kind of add to that, because these things historically were supposed to be very well hidden so that they can kind of snipe tanks from far away. So I might expand on this idea of doing camouflage and do more pins of it on the side. I had trouble sort of connecting it onto this wall because this wall is flat and it doesn't really, it's hard to make stuff hang over. But this one's fine, but I wanted to store some different stuff on this side. So I might come back to camouflage. That was kind of a first idea. I did make this unditching bar, which is a little bit different than the other unditching bars I've made before, but it's fun. I know that maybe even if it wasn't an unditching bar, there was something about having logs on armored vehicles to protect them from anti-tank rounds, which I've mentioned before. It's kind of a fun detail, and for these things to be famously heavily gunned but lightly armored, I thought that was a fun detail as well. And then I have little bits and bobs here, like this little bucket here that goes on the end, and then also an extra wheel for a different vehicle, because I know these things were just war tractors and hauled everything. So that was pretty cool. I kind of just spiced it up, and I think it adds so much to be able to put stuff on the outside like the shovel, and it makes it really look like it's a multi-purpose vehicle, which is one of my favorite features about armored vehicles just in general. I am all too aware that my lighting is terrible, but I'm going to attempt to get some shots of inside the cab here. There's just a little seat for a guy to sit in there. Oh, that's terrible. And there's another spot kind of in the back here, just with some studs on the ground for another guy to stand. It comfortably fits 2 minifigures, but you probably could fit 3 in there. The cool thing is that the cab is kind of asymmetric, so it's shifted over. It leaves sort of a rail right here for tools, even with a flush edge on this, and then it also leaves some room for these armor-piercing rounds, which I made that just kind of tuck in there, which is fun. And it doesn't get in the way of the gun moving up and down, or even the guy sitting in there, because the guy, he sits kind of on a jumper plate, which means that he doesn't touch the wall, and he doesn't, like, his arms don't get in the way. So he sits really nicely in there. He actually can see through the port. You can see his head in there through the eye port, which I thought was just great, and everything kind of all lined up pretty well. So this is it. I have never made a tank destroyer before. This is my very first one. People who know this type of vehicle, or maybe know tanks in general, will have to tell me what they think of what I made here. I would much appreciate some constructive criticism on what it is. I have never, like I said, never made one of these before. Had a lot of fun making these. Had a lot of fun experimenting with the wheels, making this big old gun, doing some asymmetric edges here. and just being creative. So this is it. This is my build. This is the Devil Cigar. It is for engaging and destroying enemy tanks from a long range with a big old gun. So it was an incredibly fun thing to build, and incredibly fun thing to share actually as well. So if people liked this video, they know what to do. Yeah, this is it. This is my build, and thanks for just coming along and checking it out. It's such a pleasure of mine to be able to share the things that I make, and it's usually fun things like this. So I'm gonna keep building, and hopefully my viewers will keep watching.